public have a chance to speak out, to actually question those in power, those who are world leaders and thought leaders. So whether it was on immediate politics and breaking news, or whether it was on issues such as gun control or abortion or things like that, it was important to have a public voice in that from around the world. And it was very interesting to see, still is interesting to see how people from literally every corner of the planet want to take part and do take part.
And now you work for an Arab channel, Al Jazeera English. You're broadcasting to, I guess, to English-speaking countries. But now you are, when you have your Q&A programs, what is your perception of the Arab viewers? What is their approach to you now?
It's important to know we actually broadcast globally. We broadcast to not just English language, we broadcast not just to English-speaking countries, but to anyone who really has access. And it's surprising how many people will tune in just to watch the pictures. And I get this feedback from people, they want to be able to see our coverage of the developing world. We try to be strong in covering developing world issues. The feedback is I think people realize that there is a lot wrong with this world and a lot wrong with some of the leadership in this world, and they want to be able to express their opinions. We saw that recently with the Gaza situation and Israel's attacks on Gaza. We had, I think, 20 million plus hits a month, 60% on the internet, and it shows that we have a young audience watching the channel, which is actually very good because it means it's many young minds who are not as influenced by the baggage of previous generations.
Could you describe what kind of impact you think Al Jazeera has had on the Arab world and the relationship between the Western and the Arab world?
Well, the Al Jazeera Arabic channel, which launched in 1996, in November 1996, was completely revolutionary when it came to media in the Middle East. It was the first pan-Arab regional channel that really was willing to point fingers and talk about issues that were either considered taboo or actually banned in some countries in the Middle East. So it really revolutionized television broadcasting news in the Middle East. And of course, what it did was upset a lot of people. So there was a period of time where the only country that hadn't banned the Al Jazeera channel was Israel, which was kind of ironic. But also, Al Jazeera Arabic was the first channel in the Middle East to put Israelis on discussing issues such as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict out to Arab viewers. It hadn't been done before. So it's quite a major breakthrough. And I think it changed the way the Arab world saw itself. Even in countries where people were a little bit wary of Al Jazeera because they felt it was challenging leadership, challenging authority, people still watch it, and the viewership was incredibly high, I mean higher than any other channel in the region.
And what about the political impact?
Well, I think definitely it's made politicians in the region more answerable. The fact that there's a channel out there willing to answer, there's only so much politicians can avoid the channel. I mean, eventually, if they don't speak out, then people say, well, what do you have to hide? So I think it encouraged leaders in the region to question, or at least to come forward and answer the questions against them. Of course, it's still difficult, and the channel is, obviously always having to deal with being banned or being blocked or being questioned for its own views. But to be honest, it's actually a very strong channel in the Middle East, and really a leader, a thought leader. The English channel has tried to take that pioneering spirit and take it globally and say, well, listen, the news doesn't just have to come from the West. It doesn't have to be Western-based. Actually, we have 4 large centres. We're in Kuala Lumpur, Doha, London, and DC. The headquarters are in Doha, but we have huge broadcast centres in these other locations too. So we actually have a very strong presence around the world, and an incredible mix of journalists too, which I think has really come through on air.
And may I allow myself to take your chair for a second and make a Q&A here with our audience in Copenhagen. So those of you... Yeah. We have a question here from... can you speak up?
Yes, hello, Mr. Khan. I'm Espen from the Danish Union of Journalists. A very short question. Thank you. Do you have a mission with your journalism, or are you just an excellent independent journalist?
Well, this is interesting. I went through an interesting round of questioning myself recently. I had Robert Fisk on, the highly regarded and superb journalist, British journalist who's covered the Middle East for so many years. And the way I was trained at the BBC was, it was very much sort of beaten into me that I was there as a broadcast journalist, which under British regulations are supposed to be non-editorial and very, very much dealing with facts and figures. I mean, there's, it's quite a key part of the training for Brits not to have opinions and comments as broadcasters. And what Robert, who was a very outspoken journalist, said is, look, the time has changed. You know, it's not possible to sit and not have a position on some of the things that are happening. And it did make me feel a little bit ashamed that there are times that, you know, what I feel about the story is not allowed to be expressed. And I mean, I had to stick to that because that keeps me true and that keeps me fair. But sometimes I get very frustrated in the sort of limits that perhaps the broadcast we faced. It's changing, and you see comments, editorials on broadcast channels right across our seats changing capacities. But I still feel that there's a danger of going down a path of factionalizing television if we don't try to stick with the facts. I tend to think the story is the story, the facts will speak for themselves, and as long as they can get the real information, we'll be able to judge fairly on what's right and wrong.
Thanks, Mr. Fiskar. We have another question here from the audience. I'll try to turn it.
I'm Jonas. I'm studying Arabic in Copenhagen. My question is, how do you, in your everyday life as a journalist, do you feel the censorship? Do you have to tackle that in your everyday work?
I've been lucky actually that I think the BBC through to Zurich, I've never been told what they can and cannot say. You know, as long as we're within the boundaries of legitimate broadcasting, we're regulated, for example, by the Office of Telecommunications and Britain. So there are actual boundaries which, you know, illegal and can't cross. But those are established boundaries. They affect us too. But there's never been anywhere where people have said to me, you know, someone has come and said, you have to have this position, this story, or you have to have this position on this story. So I've been very lucky that I've never had to bow down to any kind of censorship pressure. And I think as long as I'm culturally sensitive and as long as I'm aware of the global audience, I mean, simple things, for example, the need to pronounce names properly. It's considered quite disrespectful. If, you know, Western channels go out and blatantly mispronouncing names, people will question their credibility. So there are many other issues out there too. I think essentially I've been free of censorship, and that feels quite good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah. There's a question here. Okay.
Hi, Liz. I'm Tora from International Media Support. We have been discussing earlier today the issue of greater interest or interest among the Arab audiences of local news and the close to local news. I would like to hear your take on that, seen from the satellite broadcaster.
If I thought the question properly, it was about the need for Arab audiences to see local news. And do you mean by local news, you mean more factual and more representative news?
No, sorry, it was the interest of the Arab audiences for local news, as we also see here in Denmark or other places. The interest for local news vis-a-vis the international broadcasters' view. What is your perception of that development?
Okay, well, I think audiences have become smarter around the world. I think people's expectations have been raised. I mean, the satellite revolution has made it harder for governments to block access to information. The internet has been a fantastic tool, of course, and even you know, the proxy servers are set up in many countries, including some in the Middle East. It's quite easy for those with know-how to be able to bypass them. I think we've reached a point in the information age where it's very difficult for governments to keep stories and keep information completely away from their public. Now, of course, there are elements of society that don't have access to the internet or to satellite television. Well, the satellite television is quite widely available even in some of the poorer areas, even if it's people grouping around one small television in a cafe or something. But essentially, information is spreading much faster than people can control it. And I'm amazed. I mean, we're at the next stage, Web 2.0, where it's going to be about social networking, it's going to be about interconnectivity.